Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Trebas Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we begin with a breaking news update on a story that we brought to you yesterday. 5 people have been arrested in connection to the small boat that capsized off of the coast near Del Mar. Prosecutors have charged 2 Mexican nationals, Julio Cesar Zuniga Luna and Jesus Rodriguez Leyva, with bringing in aliens resulting in death and bringing in aliens for financial gain. 3 others were charged with transportation of illegal aliens. At least 3 people died in the accident. Prosecutors say one of them was a 14-year-old boy. 4 others were taken to the hospital where they are all being treated for respiratory issues.
We see them 2 to 3 times a year, from Del Mar up to Carlsbad. And this one here differed in the sense that we did have some casualties.
And normally that's not the case?
Not to our experience. It always is. It always is. But we're here to focus on a job and make things better for everyone.
After 16 hours, the multi-agency search was called off late last night with 7 people still missing. CBP says the case has been transferred to the U.S. Attorney's Office.
Good evening, I'm Ariella Scalise, and coming up here, who is ready for a pattern change after a cool and kind of wet and cloudy start to the week? Things are changing. We'll begin to warm on up significantly by the weekend. Tonight, temperatures will be into the upper 50s as clouds increase.
Anthem Blue Cross customers in San Diego can once again access Scripps Health with in-network coverage. Scripps announced today that effective immediately, it is temporarily extending its previous in-network contracts through September of 2026. During this extension period, the 2 sides say they will work to reach a new long-term deal. Scripps went out of network with Anthem Blue Cross back on January 1st. After 196 days on strike, mental health workers at Kaiser Permanente in San Diego could be heading back to work later this week. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco says Kaiser and the National Union of Healthcare Workers have a tentative agreement.
The agreement impacts about 300 Kaiser mental health employees across San Diego County. They have been on an open-ended strike since October. One of the key union demands was around pay.
We made some important progress on that front in terms of equity. We didn't get all the way there.
Kaiser declined an interview request. In a statement, they say if the union ratifies the agreement on Thursday, it will go into effect immediately. That means Kaiser mental health staff could be back to work later this week. Former union president Sal Rosselli says the strike helped push forward 2 union-sponsored bills advancing through the California legislature. The first would require Kaiser to reimburse patients for outside mental health care.
For patients that need mental health care, could not get it in Kaiser as required, by the law even, and had to go outside of Kaiser network to receive the care.
The second bill would increase transparency around how mental health systems like Kaiser pay their behavioral health workers compared to other medical staff.
In Kaiser, our clinicians, many with PhDs, psychologists, make up to 50% less than physical therapists or occupational therapists on the medical side.
Rosselli says the union struggle now moves to Sacramento. Kaiser and other medical groups oppose both bills. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
The San Diego Board of Supervisors considered tapping into the county's reserves today amid funding cuts and tighter budgets. The proposal failed, but its backers say they plan to bring it up in the future, saying it would help fund services to vulnerable communities during an economic crisis. Greg Angel, the CEO of Interfaith Community Services, says county funding helps expand services to people experiencing homelessness.
Recently expanded our withdrawal management service programs here in Escondido. That expansion was made possible by additional funding from the County of San Diego. We've seen that additional funding have life-changing impact. Just last month in April, we got 49 people off the streets of Escondido and into our withdrawal management services program. We support and advocate for more of this.
Supervisor Jim Desmond voted against the idea. He said the county's reserves are for true emergencies like wildfires, natural disasters, or severe economic downturns. Supervisors Tara Lawson-Remer and Monica Montgomery Stepp authored the proposal. They said they would bring it back in a future session after budgets are finalized. President Trump met with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney at the White House today. Carney's Liberal Party won federal elections last week following a campaign that largely focused on pushing back against Trump's steep tariffs and threats to annex Canada. Julia Benbrook has more.
This visit by Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney follows President Donald Trump's aggressive tariff blitz, which has undermined America's long-standing relationship with Canada. Those tariffs also inadvertently helped Carney consolidate political power. In a rebuke to Trump, Canada's Liberal Party, with Carney as its leader, won federal elections last week. This White House visit comes amid Trump's ongoing trade war.
We have some tough points to go over, and that'll be fine.
Trump has also made threats to Canada's sovereignty in recent months, repeatedly saying he wants to make Canada the 51st state, a point he echoed again during Tuesday's meeting and one that Carney quickly rejected.
It would really be a wonderful marriage because it's two places that get along very well. They like each other a lot.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
Just moments before welcoming Carney to the White House, Trump took to social media to slam Canada, saying in part, "We don't need anything they have other than their friendship, which hopefully we will always maintain," adding, "They, on the other hand, need everything from us." During today's sit-down, Carney said that he looks forward to continuing to find areas of mutual cooperation. Canada is America's second biggest trading partner and one of its closest allies on many fronts, from national security to commerce. Reporting at the White House, I'm Julia Benbrook.
President Trump has proclaimed himself the fertilization president. It might be tempting to call that declaration hyperbolic, but two UC San Diego researchers actually found evidence that birth rates climbed 8 years ago during Trump's first term. Public Matters reporter Amitha Sharma has more in the first of a two-part series on fertility. And Amitha, this is such an intriguing finding. Tell us more about this.
Well, these two researchers, economics professor Gordon Dahl at UC San Diego and assistant professor of finance William Mullins, decided to examine whether there is a link between fertility rates and presidential elections. And so they evaluated birth certificate data in Republican-leaning counties and Democratic-majority counties. And what they found was that after President Trump was elected in 2016, that there was a distinct jump in the birth rates in red counties, and at the same time, there was a drop in births in blue counties. Here is Professor Mullins with more.
We get a range of estimates that range between about 1.5% of the U.S. fertility rate, all the way up to about 3% of the U.S. fertility rate, just rough order of magnitude. So that's essentially saying that the Republican counties saw a big increase relative to Democratic counties. And that the size of that difference is about 3% of the U.S. national fertility rate in our main analysis.
It's important to emphasize that the size of that difference did not change the entire decline in fertility or reverse it, but it is not small either. And Dahl points out that Republican women have always had higher fertility rates than Democratic women.
But Trump's election widens the gap between Republicans and Democrats by about 17%. So that's one way to think about it. Another way to kind of think about how big this effect is, it's about the same shift in births that happens when you have a 1% increase in unemployment. So people are fertility is fairly responsive to the overall economic conditions. And when unemployment rate goes up by about 1%, that's about the same magnitude we're talking about here.
The reasons Mullins and Dahl say Republican women had more babies than Democrats during Trump's first term are fascinating and reveal something about the nature of the difference in outlook between Democrats and Republicans. But the biggest one, according to Dahl, is hope.
And there's economic optimism, like where's the future of the economy going? And there's also optimism about, where's society going? And so if you look at the election of Donald Trump, which was a surprise, most people, including the New York Times poll or betting markets, predicted Trump was not going to win. He wins unexpectedly, and what you see in terms of measures of economic optimism is they flip almost overnight.
I've just received a call from Secretary Clinton.
So in a flash, Republicans became optimistic about the future and Democrats became pessimistic. There were changes in other voting blocs, too. For example, even though Latino voting patterns have changed since 2016, soon after that year's presidential election, Mullins says there was a change in birth rates in the group.
You find that Hispanic fertility in the counties in which he made campaign visits actually fell relative to non-Hispanic fertility. And that lasted for about 3 to 4 months after each campaign stopped.
And Maya, I did ask Dahl and Mullins if they expect a similar bump in the birth rates now that Trump is back in the White House, and Dahl said he does. At the same time, Trump is actually trying to get more women to have more kids, and that is the focus of my piece tomorrow.
Wow, absolutely fascinating, Amitha. Thank you so much, and we look forward to tomorrow's piece.
Thank you, Maya.
And Public Matters is a partnership with KPBS, iNews Source, and Voice of San Diego, and you can see more of our stories at kpbs.org/Public Matters.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, Canada's newly elected Prime Minister comes to the White House amid President Trump's repeated threats against the U.S. ally. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
San Diego County appears to be making strides when it comes to curbing gun violence. According to a new report, gun-related homicides are down 11%. Ghost gun recoveries by the sheriff's office are down 39%, and that is the biggest decrease since 2022. The sheriff and district attorney's offices credit this to initiatives like buyback programs and giving out gun safes and locks. Since 2021, more than 2,600 guns have been given back. Acting Chair Tara Lawson-Remer played a key role in passing an ordinance that banned ghost guns.
We need to have common sense background checks so people who have a history of domestic violence or robbery can't just walk into a gun shop and buy a gun off the shelf. That people who have a history of mental illness, who are in danger to themselves and others.
As a part of the county's plan, they want to continue educational programs on domestic violence, start providing resources for those injured from a shooting, and look to operate street outreach programs throughout the county. San Diego's budget deficit is prompting more conversations about paid parking in Balboa Park. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says multiple options are on the table.
Mayor Todd Gloria's proposed budget includes $11 million in revenue from paid parking in Balboa Park. City officials say they are considering keeping free parking in some parts of the park while charging for the most high-demand lots. Still, the proposal is controversial.
Our public parks are the last escape for people on a budget to enjoy the assets that have been endowed to us by generations before. To create more barriers for the community under the guise that tourists will eat the cost doesn't take a real view of year-round usage by everyone who calls this area home.
Michael Zuquette is head of the Municipal Employees Association, the largest union of city workers. He told the city council on Monday that visitors should pay a higher parking rate than residents.
The model that we have at our municipal golf courses, where residents pay one fee and non-residents pay a fee that is 2 or 3 times as much, is a good model and should be thought of as we embark upon these fees.
Those comments were echoed by Councilmember Sean Ela Rivera, who says the city needs to focus its search for new revenues, not on residents, but visitors.
We have not squeezed all the juice that there is to squeeze out of San Diego being not just one of the premier tourist destinations in the country, but also what is essentially the playground for the rest of the region.
The council will vote on the mayor's budget in June. Then later in the year, take a separate vote on whether to implement paid parking in Balboa Park. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Many families in East County are living in food deserts, meaning that they lack access to healthy food. KPBS education reporter Katie Anastas says a school food pantry in Boulevard is responding to that problem by sending food home with kids who take the school bus.
The Mountain Empire Unified School District covers more than 650 square miles in southeast San Diego County. More than 60% of the district's students are eligible for free or reduced price meals. Hannah Hong has 2 kids in the district. She says grocery shopping here can be a challenge.
We have just 2 or 3 liquor stores and then one small grocery market. And it's kind of isolated mountainside area. So it takes like at least 30 minutes to get out and get a food.
Fresh produce is scarce, and it's usually more expensive than it would be in West San Diego County.
It's hard to come by. A lot of times it's damaged and stuff by the time you do get it because it has to be shipped from down to town. So by the time it gets up here, it's pretty messed up.
In Boulevard, students and their parents can now pick up food at Clover Flat Elementary School. Feeding San Diego has put on a school food pantry there twice a month since November. At their other school pantries, parents get the food when they pick up their kids from school. In this district, 97% of the kids take school buses. That means the amount of food they can take home is limited by what they can carry.
Coming out to a school that really relies on transportation, we have to look at ways to make sure the kids who are going to bring that food home can take it in an accessible manner, because it can be upwards of 24 pounds of fresh produce and dry goods, which can be a lot for a little one.
Along with fresh produce, they try to provide prepackaged food that doesn't require much cooking, since the area deals with frequent power outages.
And the kids were very happy about the little macaroni and cheeses because they're so adorable in the little boxes and the fruit cups.
Over the last 6 months, they figured out how to best distribute food to students before they take the bus home. Gary Brannon is the district's director of student services.
They do a really good job by bringing kids out of the classroom on a one-by-one basis. They're able to select what they want, figure out what they can carry, and then they go back to their class.
The district serves multiple unincorporated communities and reservations. Brannon says the food pantry is one of many ways schools are acting as community hubs.
It lets people know that this is a place you can come for support, whether it's food or education or other services or referrals to other things. We are here to support our whole community. It's beyond just taking care of the kids, it's taking care of our community.
Clover Flat Elementary is one of 2 rural schools with Feeding San Diego food pantries. There are more than 60 others in the county and more schools on the wait list. Katie Anastas, KPBS News.
From elaborate florist arrangements to supermarket bouquets, the vast majority of flowers sold in the U.S. are imported from countries with climates friendly for growing. Now those imports face tariffs. Karen Kaifa has a look at what consumers should know before they order for Mother's Day.
Mother's Day, June weddings, graduations, proms. This is a really busy time for florists. And unlike other retailers, they weren't able to stockpile items ahead of time in warehouses. So some are getting creative to keep up. The Mother's Day rush is on at Washington, D.C.'s Little Acre Flowers.
It's by far our busiest week out of the entire year.
Bringing in new stems daily.
We get all of the flowers that we work with from nearby farms as close as we can from our location here in D.C.
Little Acre's locally sourced flowers are an exception in the floral industry. More than 80% of flowers sold in the U.S. are imported, according to the Association of Floral Importers of America, mostly from Colombia and Ecuador.
They have the same temperature all year round. So the commerciability of growing what we need for the consumers 52 weeks a year is able to be done.
AFIA Executive Vice President Christine Bolt says the floral industry has deeply felt President Trump's baseline 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. because of frequent fragile imports.
It is perishable. It comes when it comes, and we gotta move it as fast as possible.
The extra cost will be a burden to some florists and may be passed on to consumers. But Kate Penn of the Society of American Florists says florists weathered supply chain challenges prompted by the COVID-19 pandemic and have a certain creative resilience.
What our industry really did was they got much better at planning in advance. They really leaned into their supplier relationships because that's so important in times like this.
And even though her shop's flowers are grown close to home, Little Acres owner Amber Flack says tariffs could catch up with her business too.
The farmers that we work with, they may source things like bulbs or seeds from international sources, and if those things are marked up, that cost is eventually going to get passed along to us.
And the Society of American Florists says if you are ordering flowers for a major event like Mother's Day or a spring wedding, do it early. That'll allow your florist some time to reach out with possible options and some time to talk through your budget. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
Let's start off with some weather headlines as we are shifting into a different pattern here than what we started with earlier into the week. It's a dry weather pattern and it is a warming trend. That's excellent news for any of your outdoor plans here. Heads up, by Saturday, we're talking about temperatures some 10 to 15 degrees above the historical average. Enjoy that while it lasts, because by Sunday into early next week, we'll be tracking some coastal low clouds and some cooler temperatures. Tonight, rather comfortable in Oceanside, down to 54. San Diego 59, and Chula Vista temperatures will be dropping into the mid-50s as we make our way towards Mount Laguna, cooler with 43 degrees. Here's the system that was bringing us the damp, the cooler conditions across parts of California, even down across San Diego. We are dry for a good day as we head into the middle of the week. Wednesday shaping up to be a beautiful in Borrego Springs at 84, Mount Laguna to 53. San Diego will see temperatures back into the upper 60s, and Oceanside near 70 degrees. But here we go. As high pressure really dominates, we'll be talking about much warmer weather coming back over the end of the week and building into the weekend. So some pretty warm temperatures on the way for Thursday along the coast. That brings us to 74 degrees. But notice by Saturday, we're at 80, and then we see temperatures dip again as we head into the day on Sunday. We'll take you inland where temperatures will be pleasant, but certainly getting very warm. 84 by Friday and 90 degrees for the hottest of the next 5 on Saturday, and then temperatures drop back down into the upper 70s as we head into the day on Sunday. We'll also see a warming trend here, even if you're heading towards the mountains. 53 on Wednesday, 59 on Thursday, so staying cool, but we'll be near 72 as we head into the day on Sunday. We'll wrap things up, and who's ready for some triple-digit heat into the deserts? 105. Hottest day comes on Saturday. For KPBS News, I'm Ariella Scalise.
Over the last 10+ years, Kitchens for Good in Pacific Beach has helped hundreds of people get jobs in the culinary and hospitality industries. Their work is supported by funds raised in their store where they sell donated kitchen items. KPBS reporter John Carroll tells us about a rare and remarkable donation that's now up for auction.
You get the idea of what this place is all about from its title, Kitchens for Good. The money made in their store goes to support apprenticeships, helping people who face barriers to employment overcome those challenges and find meaningful, rewarding work as cooks, bakers, and in the hospitality industry. Classes to learn all of that are held in 2 off-site locations. Today, hundreds of people hold good, decent-paying jobs thanks to the start they got at Kitchens for Good. In the Kitchens for Good store, you will find just about anything culinary related, from crockery to cutlery, and even candles, and a lot of other stuff that doesn't begin with the letter C.
People come to us, they spend, a period of time with us doing basic kitchen skills. They can learn culinary or baking skills, and then at the end of the time with us, we help them write their resumes. Look, at every one of them is like hand-painted art throughout the book.
And that brings us to the crux of this story, a way to help those programs continue on. It's an item up for bid right now on Kitchens for Good's eBay store. Actually, 20 items, a collection of remarkable Italian cookbooks from the 70s called Italy in Bocca. Mary Scafidi says it's rare to find a complete set of these whimsical tomes.
They are about different regions of Italy, so each book has its own region and it's written in the dialect of that region, along with it's written in English and Italian. So 3 languages in each book. The covers are handmade on cardboard, painted. The paper is made out of oatmeal. They're just really special books.
Kitchens for Good's Nico Parker set up the item on eBay. When we shot this story yesterday, the auction was off to a good start.
We have one bid of $3,000 right now. We have 18 watchers and we have 131 views right now.
The auction closes on Thursday afternoon. Plenty of time for cookbook collectors to get in their bids on something truly unique, something that will really help Kitchens for Good's mission to set people on new and productive paths in life, getting good jobs, bringing lives to fruition through the power of food. John Carroll, KPBS News.
And here is a look at what we are working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. As U.S. companies scale back on buying Chinese goods due to tariffs, West Coast ports say a quarter of ships scheduled for May have been canceled. More on how quickly it impacts what you see on the shelves on NPR's Morning Edition. And KPBS Midday Edition is all about Mother's Day. We discuss the disparities Black women face when it comes to maternity care and how to navigate grief for those who have lost a loved one. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit BillHowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.